Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. So we will continue our discussion on history. In the last session, we have completed from 1905 to 1922. So or 1921 up to non-cooperation movement, right? So if you go for a quick recap of what all things we have done, I'll just discuss the timeline. 1905, we have started off with partition of Bengal, and then we have discussed about Swadeshi movement, and then associated to that we have discussed about 1907 Surat split, where moderates and extremists got separated and Tilak was sent to jail, and that extremist group actually got suppressed. Okay, and then during 1908 to 1911 we have discussed about the first phase of militant nationalism. So the first phase of militant nationalism was during the time of partition of Bengal, and then 1914 when Tilak was released, Tilak and Annie Besant took a lot of efforts for the reunification of Congress, and that resulted into reunification of Congress in 1916 Lucknow session. And we have also talked about Lucknow Pact or Tilak Jinnah Pact, and in the Lucknow Pact I have told you that Muslim League and Congress is now onwards going to take a joint anti-imperialist stand. Why Muslim League and Congress is joining hands, and why Muslim League is now going to take anti-imperialist stand contrary to or against their loyalty to British till now, we have discussed the reasons for that. And then we have talked about militant nationalism during the phase of World War One, sorry. So we have discussed about World War One, and we have discussed about the second phase of militant nationalism, that was during World War One, and we have discussed about Khadar party associated to that. We have discussed about Kamagata Maro incident. We have talked about Continuous Passage Act. We have talked about Defense of India Act. We have talked about Zimmerman Plan. All those things we have discussed. We have also covered Khilafat issue, and then we have discussed about 1909 Indian Council Act, 1919 Government of India Act, and Diarchy was introduced in 1919 Government of India Act. 1909, the important point, the separate electorate was introduced. All those things we have covered, and Congress was not happy with 1919 Government of India Act, and Congress decided, or Congress boycotted, or Congress decided that they are not going to contest election which is based on 1919 Government of India Act. Okay, and then we have talked about the stick, that is Rowlatt Act. I've told you what is Rowlatt Act. Okay, that the police have given unlimited powers. They can imprison anyone who is suspected of involving anti-national activity, and then that actually challenged the idea of habeas corpus. Then we have talked about the Jallianwala Bagh incident. Okay, and then we have talked about the Hundar Commission, which was appointed to inquire into the charges of police excesses related to Jallianwala Bagh incident, and all these things actually led to non-cooperation movement, and we have discussed about non-cooperation movement in detail, and I've told you what is the difference between non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. In between, we have also talked about Mahatma Gandhi and experiences in South Africa. We have discussed in detail all the issues that Gandhi took up in South Africa related to Indians, have discussed in detail in a particular video. And then we have also discussed about arrival of Gandhi in India, where we have talked about the initial struggles or the incidences like Champaran Satyagraha, Kheda Satyagraha, and the Ahmedabad mill strike, whereas the first two, Champaran Satyagraha and Kheda Satyagraha, was related to the peasant issues, but the Ahmedabad mill strike was related to the workers issue. Okay, and Champaran Satyagraha was Gandhi's first civil disobedience movement. The second one, the Kheda Satyagraha, was a non-cooperation movement, the first non-cooperation movement in India by Gandhi. Third one was the first hunger strike by Gandhi. So this is what the discussion we have done so far. Now today in the session, we are going to start our next phase, that is from 1921 to 1931. So this is how we are going to cover entire history. Then and after this I'll be talking about 1931 to 1937 up till election, and then the last phase we will do 1937 to 1947. So this is how I'm planning to cover the entire history. So maybe in another 6-7 sessions you will be getting, or we will be covering the entire modern India, and after that we'll start the post-independence India, and in between we will be also talking about economics. So if you missed out any of the videos that we have discussed so far, if you have any doubts, you can get in touch with me. There's the Instagram ID, and you'll get all the videos in this Telegram channel. You can join the Telegram channel. You will get all the videos over there. Okay, so let's get started. So we are going to start this new phase 1921 to 1931. So this period is what we are going to discuss, and this discussion will be done in two parts. Okay, in the first part I'll talk about the major debate which is actually going on between two groups, Swarajists and no changers. Okay, I'll tell you who are Swarajists, okay, and who are the no changers and what's the debate between them. All those things we'll discuss in detail. Secondly, we will be talking about the third phase of militant nationalism, which is considered more important. Here we'll be talking about Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, all those cases. That means Hindustan Republican Association will talk about. That means basically militant nationalism. Here we will divide into two. Militant nationalism in North India we'll discuss, which is connected to Bhagat Singh, and then we will talk about militant nationalism in Bengal, which is connected to Surya Sen, where we will discuss about Kakori, train robbery and all those issues. Okay, so the possible mains question, I'll give you two mains questions here, and then I'll take up the discussion. Okay, and we'll discuss all the important points which can be asked in prelims as well. So entire history will be covered in a better perspective. Okay, so the question will be here: the debate between Swarajist and no changes. So this is the first one that we are going to address. The second question that we are going to address is actually the role of militant nationalism and its contribution to Indian freedom struggle, or it can also be asked as the role of or impact of leftist ideas on Indian freedom struggle. Now, see the second question, that is role of militant nationalism and its contribution to Indian freedom struggle. So here I have already told you two phases of militant nationalism, right? The first phase of militant nationalism was during the period of partition of Bengal, when extremist the leaders were arrested. The masses are left out with leaders, so they started taking up bullets and guns, and they tried to assassinate the unpopular officials, but they were not much successful. So the first phase of militant nationalism is not that success. In fact, the second phase that we have discussed during World War I was related to Khadar party. That was also not successful because their objective or their aim was basically to instigate a mutiny among the Indian army which was stationed abroad as well as in India during World War I, so that you can weaken the English army and you can overthrow the British from India. That was their objective, but that also was never happened because Britishers understood the plan and they passed Defence of India Act and they suppressed the issue. Okay, and they have actually arrested and hanged many of the Indian soldiers. So these are the two phases. The first phase during the partition of Bengal, second phase was during the World War I. Here we are talking about the third phase. So here we will be talking about Hindustan Republican Association, or later it was regrouped into HSRA, Socialist Republic Association, with the impact of Russian Revolution. We'll come to that. But here, if the question is about role of militant nationalism, you have to talk about the first phase, second phase, and this phase, okay, which was again divided into North India and in West Bengal. We'll talk about both Bhagat Singh on one side, Surya Sen on the other side, and later during World War II time also you will see a phase of militant nationalism in the form of INA. Okay, that also will be discussed later. We'll discuss about INA, Rin Mutiny, all those things will be covered in the fourth session that we're going to deal. But if this question is this impact of leftist idea on Indian freedom struggle, you don't want to talk much about the first phase and second phase. You have to basically talk more about Bhagat Singh and Hindustan Republican Association. Okay, anyway, when we start the discussion, you'll come to know about all these facts. So I'll give you the brief timeline of this period. What all events that we are going to discuss, I'll tell you, and then we will take up the discussion, out of which in today's session I'll be handling these two topics. Okay, so as we have already discussed, in 1922 the major event is actually Chauri Chaura, and after that the non-cooperation movement was called off. In fact, we have already covered this discussion, so I'm just writing as part of the timeline. Okay, and then in 1924 Gandhi was imprisoned for non-cooperation movement, and during this time only the debate was there between Swarajists and no changes. Both are actually part of Congress. Okay, I'll tell you who are Swarajists and who are no changes. Just wait for 2-3 minutes. We'll discuss that. Okay, so Gandhi imprisoned for NCM, and we have already discussed this part. And then the debate between Swarajist and no changes regarding the future course of freedom struggle or the nationalist movement. Then in 1924, again what we need to discuss is actually the militant nationalism. So the HRA was formed in North India. Okay, so HRA formed in North India, and then connected to that we will have to discuss about Kakori train robbery, okay, 1925 by Ram Prasad Bismil, Ashfaqullah Khan and Rajendra Lahiri. Okay, Ram Prasad Bismil, Ashfaqullah Khan and Rajendra Lahiri. We will come to that in detail later. And we will discuss about Simon Commission. Okay, so Simon Commission 1928, and Simon Commission was basically came to discuss future devolution of power. But the problem is actually it was a 7-membered committee of the British cabinet, but there was no representation from Indian side, and it was actually rejected by Congress. So Simon Commission was rejected. Anti-Simon Commission protest was there, in that Lala Lajpat Rai was killed, and that is having huge impact when we discuss about militant nationalism. We'll come to that. But here Simon Commission and anti-Simon Commission protest was there. Congress rejected Simon Commission. Then British then in 1928 only HRA was grouped into HSR, Hindustan Socialist Republic Association, okay, by Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, Rajguru, Chandrasekhar Azad. We'll discuss this in detail. And this organization HSRA bombed in the Central Legislative Assembly by Bhagat Singh, these people, when 2 important bills were discussing, that is Trade Dispute Bill and Trade Dispute Bill, very important, and Public Safety Bill. Okay, so these 2 bills, you have to get into the details of this bill. In fact, these are actually asked as prelims questions, so this can be asked again also. Anyway, I'll be discussing about this bill, but you have to read more about these 2 bills. Okay. And then I've told you Congress opposed the Simon Commission. So British government have now told the Indians, you come up with a formula for devolution of power, but it should be acceptable to all. It should be acceptable to all means it has to be acceptable to Muslim League, at the same time Hindu Mahasabha, and also to princely states. But the problem here is, if it is acceptable to Muslim League, it may not be acceptable to Hindu Mahasabha. If it is acceptable to Hindu Mahasabha, it may not be acceptable to Muslim League. And if it is acceptable to both of them, it may not be acceptable to princely state. Okay, and the British government clearly know about this, so they have challenged the Congress to come up with a formula which is acceptable to all sections of Indians, and Congress accepted this challenge, and Congress appointed a committee, that is what Motilal Nehru Committee. So we will have to discuss about the outcome of that is Nehru Report in 1928. Okay, and during this time Hindu Mahasabha also coming up with their demands, which has to be accommodated in the Nehru Report, and Muslim League also came up with their demand, which is known as Delhi proposals. These are actually 4 proposals by Jinnah, very important. We'll discuss about all these. Motilal Nehru Committee report, we'll discuss about Delhi proposals. We'll also talk about Hindu Mahasabha demands. Okay, and later British government rejected Nehru report because it was not acceptable to all sections, especially Muslim League. For Muslim League it was not acceptable because Nehru report rejected most of the demands by Muslim League. So Nehru report was actually rejected, and in 1929 Jawaharlal Nehru, when he became the president, he gave a call for Purna Swaraj, and 1930 Jan 26 to be celebrated as Independence Day. And then in 1930 we will also have to discuss about Gandhi's 11 demands, right? See, already Simon Commission was rejected by the Congress, and Motilal Nehru report was rejected by the British government. So Gandhi's 11 demands now is getting importance, and in that Gandhi is actually threatened to launch civil disobedience movements. Civil disobedience movement is mainly talking about, or mainly understood in terms of non-payment of taxes, which is going to hurt the economic interest of the British very badly. Okay, and Gandhi threatened to start a Dandi March, and we will be talking about that in 1930-31 time. So 1930, another incident that we need to discuss is Chittagong Armory raid by Surya Sen. Okay, so these are the events that we need to cover in this phase, 1921 to 1931 phase, out of which today in this session I will be talking about this Swarajists versus Now Changers, and then in the second part we'll talk about militant nationalism in North India and in Bengal. Okay, and in the next video we will talk about Simon Commission, Anti-Simon Commission, and we'll talk about Motilal Nehru report. Then we will also talk about Delhi proposals by Jinnah, Hindu Mahasabha demands. Okay, and then finally, okay, and maybe after that, if time permits, we'll also talk about Gandhi's 11 demands and the round table conferences we will cover. Okay, so that's what my plan. So let's start the debate between Swarajist and No Changes. Okay, Swarajist versus No Changes. Okay, so this debate actually started from 1922 onwards, and 1922 to 1924 this debate is going on. The crux of this debate is actually related to whether the Congress should contest the next election. See, already I have told you 1919 Montagu-Chelmsford recommendations, that is 1919 Government of India Act, was rejected by Congress and boycotted the election, which was based on 1919 Government of India Act in 1919, and now the next election is due in 1924. So the question is whether the Congress should contest the election in 1924 or not. So one group which was led by C.R. Das, okay, and Motilal Nehru were in support of contesting the election, and they are known as Swarajists. Okay, so who are Swarajists? C.R. Das, Motilal Nehru, those group of people who want to contest election in 1924, and their idea is contest election, enter into the legislative council and make your voice over there. Okay, and it will be a break so that you can satisfy the masses also, and you should follow mend or end approach. That means you can enter into the council and you can raise your voice, you can stop the working of the legislative council, and all these things is their idea. But the other group like Rajendra Prasad, etc. So Rajendra Prasad, Vallabhbhai Patel, etc., they were of the opinion that Congress should not contest election, because if you are contesting election, that is actually a waste of time, because you already planning to go for Purna Swaraj, and you are going to demand that. So basically there is no point in contesting election based on 1919 Government of India Act, which was already rejected. If you are contesting election, there is a waste of time. You have to go for campaigning, okay, and you don't want to waste your energy during this time. Rather, you should focus on building a mass base. You should try to get the mass support, and you have to do constructive social work during this time. So this is actually the idea of No Changes. So the debate is between Swarajist and No Changes. One group, they are of the opinion that you should contest election, enter into the legislative council, and go for a mend or end approach. That means you can raise your voice over there and you can raise your concerns over there. The other group is of the opinion that you don't want to waste your energy by contesting election. Rather, you can focus on building a mass support or mass base during this time. Okay, so if you see the difference, I'll write down the difference: Swarajist and No Changes. So Swarajist is of the opinion that Congress must contest the upcoming election of 1924. So here No Changes, Congress should not contest election in 1924. Okay. Now Swarajists argued it would boost the morale of masses and council would be the other arena where nationalist struggle could continue till the time appropriate for next mass movement. Okay, see, they are of the opinion that now there is no immediate mass movement is going to come, so till the time which is appropriate for the next mass movement, you enter the council and it would boost the morale of the masses, and council would be another arena for nationalist struggle. You can enter into the council and you can raise the voice there. Okay, so that's of the opinion of Swarajists, and they say the work of legislative council would be obstructed if the demands of Indians were not addressed. Okay, and that's what you call as mend or end approach. So who followed the mend or end approach? It is the Swarajists who followed the mend or end approach. On this other side, you can see here Congress. They are of the opinion that Congress should not contest elections, so Congress should engage in constructive social work. Okay, so Congress must continue with constructive social work. Okay, so it would build a massive social base for the Congress. Okay, so it would build a mass base for Congress. Okay, now how they are going to do that? On one side, you should promote Swadeshi, and see, this is what actually happened during non-cooperation movement also. I've told you it's all about boycott of foreign goods, and the main objective is to achieve self-sufficiency in all walks of life. So what you have done, you have promoted Khadi or you promoted Swadeshi, and on the other side you promoted Indian run schools. Okay, so establish more open Indian run schools. Okay, now what is the problem? If you contest election, contesting election would divert Congress. Okay, so contesting election would divert Congress energy and strategy away from furthering the freedom struggle. Okay, so this is what the opinion of no changes. Now finally Gandhi gave his nod for contesting election, so they have decided to contest election, and Das and Motilal Nehru finally formed Congress Khilafat Swaraj Party and they contested the election 1924. Okay, so I hope this point is clear for all of you. If you have any doubt, you can get in touch with me. Here, this is my Instagram ID and this is the Telegram channel in which you can get all videos. So I could not discuss about militant nationalism today, but we'll do that tomorrow in the next session. So this is the timeline. Just keep this in mind. This is what we are going to discuss. So we have done with this part. This part already we have covered Chauri Chaura in the previous video. Gandhi's imprisonment that we have done. Debate between Swarajists and no changes we have done. This will be doing tomorrow. Okay, and Kakori train robbery, that also will do, connected to that only. Okay, and then we will see this together. Simon Commission will see, and then Motilal Nehru report also we will see that. Okay, and here this is very important when it comes to prelims and in mains also very important. So we'll discuss this in very detail. I'll talk about trade dispute bill, I'll talk about public safety bill also, because these are the two bills which we're discussing when the sound bomb was thrown in the Central Legislative Council. Okay, that was done basically to make the deaf hear. It was not to kill anyone. Okay, and 1921, okay, Motilal Nehru report, Jinnah's four proposal in terms of Delhi proposals we'll discuss, Hindu Mahasabha the demands also we'll discuss, and Motilal Nehru committee report was rejected by the British government. We'll talk about that also because it was not acceptable to all the sections. And then we will talk about Jawaharlal Nehru, who became the president, and he gave a call for Purna Swaraj, and 1930 Jan 26 to be celebrated as Indian Independence Day. And then this is again very important, Gandhi's 11 demands. After that, he threatened to launch civil disobedience movement. So we will talk about this and civil disobedience movement, and then connected to that, we will discuss about the roundtable conferences, 3 roundtable conferences, and again connected to these 3 roundtable conferences, 1935 Government of India Act, and during roundtable conference, we'll discuss about Pune Pact also, and if time permits, we'll talk about the difference in perspective of Mahatma Gandhi and Ambedkar. Okay, so up to 1935 we'll cover. And then in the next phase, we'll talk about 1937 to 1947. Election we'll discuss, August offer we'll discuss, Cripps mission we'll discuss, Wavell plan we'll discuss, Cabinet mission plan we'll discuss, Mountbatten plan we'll discuss. In between, INA we will cover, Rain Mutiny we will cover. Everything will be covered in detail. So, okay, just wait. We'll cover everything. Maybe 3-4 videos is enough to complete your entire history. Okay, so see you guys. Thank you.